guys! So you might be surprised because it's a bit of a different setting. I just really wanted to be on my bed. I really need to do some work. I need to prepare my classes for tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, and I also need to finish a paper that I need to write on Dostoevsky and the unconscious or the subconscious. But I still wanted to sort of talk to you guys about something that's been on my mind lately, and I think is relevant to many different things. Personally, because of what I believe in and what I fight for the most, it's quite relevant to veganism, feminism, and I'd say perhaps social justice in like its more political sense. Something that has always been like very obvious to me, and that has always been something that I felt strongly about, but I realized over the years that it was definitely something that most people did not really acknowledge, or rather wanted to turn a blind eye to. And that's the fact that neutrality, or being neutral, firstly does not exist, and sex. You could really notice that in your daily life with the most personal and common events of life, such as, you know, a fight or a disagreement with someone and people refusing to take side, or on a much bigger scale, like, you know, people saying I'm not the one killing animals. You could see it as, you know, refusing to vote. You could see it in being a rather decent human being and refusing to acknowledge that women suffer from oppression, or that people of color suffer from oppression, and refusing to really get involved or talk about it, or just, you know, condemn this attitude or this behavior, saying that you're not part of this issue, that you don't really know that person or that group or whatever, that you're not really involved, and therefore you don't want to speak in favor or in the favor of any of those causes. I always had this sort of feeling that being neutral was sort of an issue itself. I remember when I was younger, when we were studying history, the fact that Switzerland was always neutral always sort of bothered me, and I was like, that's a fucking shitty attitude and position. And then I also remember reading about, I don't remember the exact quotation, but Victor Hugo wrote something along the lines of, one that's the guiltiest is not necessarily the one that's committing the crime, but rather the one who's witnessing it and not saying anything. And I think that's definitely true. And when I'm advocating for veganism, that's something I frequently get as a response. You know, people being like, oh, you know, I do as little harm as possible, or I don't want to really get involved in that, or I try to be neutral. You know, vegans do whatever they want, and people that eat animals do whatever they want. Whereas clearly, I mean, if you're not being a vegan and if you're not speaking for veganism, you're not being neutral in any way. You're not being neutral when it comes to how animals are treated. You're being a part of the issue. The same for political issues, let's say migrants, which is something I'm obviously very sort of familiar with now. Many people think, you know, oh, that's not my business, I'm not really qualified to talk about that, I don't know any migrants, I don't know anyone who's working with them or involved with them in any sort of way, I don't want to get involved, that's not really my preoccupation. And people just look at what's happening in the world and they don't take a stance in any sort of way. And I find that very appalling, really. You might retort, or you might come back with a sentence such as, but you're not taking a stance for everything that's happening in the world, and you're not being vocal about everything that's happening in the world. And that is very true, but that is because I'm a human being and I cannot possibly be vocal about everything that's happening in the world. Also, it is because I am not informed about everything that's happening in the world. I'm a human being, I'm very young, I'm very privileged, I live in one country and I've only lived in 2 cities. So my knowledge is very limited. My knowledge of the world and its issues is very limited, but I'm acknowledging that and I'm trying to change that. And you might also argue that, you know, people have different lives and therefore different schedules, possibilities to be vocal or stand for something or stand against something. And I'm completely on tune with that. I completely agree with that. I think we can we can all agree and acknowledge the fact that many people do not do anything or do not say anything at all, where they could say at least one thing, where they could refuse to buy this, or when they could refuse to buy that, when they could refuse to participate in that conversation, where they could criticize this movie, or where they could go to that demo, where they could go to that protest, where they could vote for this or vote against that. They could educate other people, you know. I think that being an activist is a very time-consuming thing that cannot necessarily be achieved depending on your personal life. Let's say you have a family and you have a regular job. Let's say you are full-time student, and let's say you're sick, for example. You know, many different factors can make it difficult to be like an activist in the most stereotypical image that we have that word. But I believe that activism, especially nowadays with social media and just the internet in general, is a very protein notion, and that we can all sort of do a little bit of activism. I don't consider myself a big activist, but when you think about it, I have made a lot of people go vegan with my videos, with my prepped ebook, with you know, just talking about veganism all the time in real life. I have also really advocated for feminism in different videos, and I'm starting to be really vocal about Palestine and migrants, and I'm also teaching French. You know, it's like in different areas of my life I'm really trying to make a difference, and that might not be like the most stereotypical image of the activism. As I said previously, you know, I'm not necessarily going to demos all the time or organizing events or even participating into events or doing actions, which I think is amazing. And if you have the possibility to do those things, go for it. I guess my approach is a little bit more on the education, sort of, yeah, educating people, informing people, and just being a voice out there. And I cannot really imagine my life being any different. Like, you know, even for Palestine, for example, I know that so many people say, oh, you know, I don't know enough, or I'm not sure I can really say what I think. I'd rather stay neutral in that situation because it's like so far away from us. I find this attitude really disgusting when you think of the fact that so many people are dying or are not free to do what they want, to get a job, to go to university, when you think of the privation that they suffer, like the lack of water, the lack of food, the lack of electricity, and when you think of lands being stolen, when you think of trees being you know, destroyed, and houses being destroyed, when you think of bombings, when you think of soldiers being constantly on the Palestinian land, all of these things should make you feel really angry, and you should not be neutral, because neutral does not fucking exist anyway. If you don't say anything, if you don't do anything, you're on the side of the oppressor. You're seeing someone being a victim, you're seeing someone being attacked, harassed, violented, tormented, and you're not doing anything. I think in society nowadays we see this as a sort of even positive thing, you know, like, no big deal, I don't get into fights, I don't get into arguments, I'm like a light and joyful and happy and funny person, I'm like chilled and cool. What is cool in just being indifferent to what's happening in the world? Like, I think very frequently we completely mistake tolerance and just being chilled and whatever and relaxed for being just indifferent and not giving a shit about anything, and that's not a positive thing. The reason why we live in the world, for many of us, that's safe and in which we have a lot of opportunities, even though that's not the case for everyone, is because a lot of people in history and even nowadays are still fighting and are giving a shit about what's happening, and they're fighting the systems, they're fighting those harmful ideas and behaviors, they're fighting racism, sexism, speciesism, xenophobia, and they're trying to make the world a better place, and they tried really hard, and thanks to them, many of us now enjoy a life that's reasonably safe and happy. But that's not something granted, that's not something we should take for granted, that's something that can be taken away from us really quickly, and that's something that has been taken away from many people in the world, and that should be our business as well. We can all do a little bit of something. We can all say we disagree with things, we can all write about whatever we disagree with, we can all educate and inform people, be it our friends, our family, colleagues, people we just encounter and at random meetings. We can buy what we buy or not buy. We can all decide on what we choose to wear. I mean, you can wear a bag, you can wear a shirt, advocating for something, and that's already a form of activism. How you use your time, the people you hang out with, and the kind of discussions that you have, the kind of vacations that you take, every single thing can be a stance. We should all be more aware of the power and the potential that we have as individuals. So I hope this was, I don't know, I just wanted to talk about that a little bit, I suppose. I would really like to hear what your thoughts on that are, guys. And I would really also love to hear about the causes that you believe strongly in or that you want to fight for. Thank you for watching this video, guys. I hope you're doing amazingly well, and I'll see you later. Bye!